Great, thanks very much, Lorraine. Yep, really looking forward to getting started with our session today. So I'll just introduce myself and then over to Claire to introduce herself after that. So as Lorraine mentioned, yeah, I'm Gillian McNeil and I'm one of the two speech language therapists, part of our team at Call. And myself and Claire were up in school 2 weeks ago. It doesn't seem that long ago. Time's just flown by. Observing the use of technology within the school, and on the back of that we've been asked to come and give you some training sessions, the first of which is today. So that's, yeah, as I say, we're going to be covering sort of simple AEC devices today, practical, very practically based. We're not assuming any knowledge, and we hope there'll be something in it for everybody. So Claire, would you like to just introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, hello, I'm another co-person, colleague of Gillian. I'm a teacher by trade, and I'm recognising some names from things that were on doors, I think, when we were up in Orchard Brae a couple of weeks ago. So it's good to be here and looking forward to sharing some nice practical ideas with you for supporting communication in lots of different contexts in the classroom.
Thanks, Claire. So I'll be leading today. Claire's going to come in at various points and do some of the practical stuff with you. I think most of this sort of housekeeping, so to speak, has been covered. If you would like to ask questions throughout the session, we're more than happy to take them on the chat. Claire will keep a lookout for that and may just kind of respond within the chat, or give me a shout probably if it's something maybe to pick up at the time. Otherwise, hopefully we'll have some time at the end, and if you have any questions sort of throughout the session and you feel it'd be fine to leave them to the end, then we will pick up on that then. Otherwise, if you, there's an option to raise your hand, maybe more so at the end if you would like to ask a question, which is one of the wee icons you'll see most at the top of your screen. The chat box is the small sort of speech bubble, and that will allow you to open the chat box for typing in that. The other icon, just the two kind of people, is where you can see the participants in today's session. So yeah, I do recognise some names as well, so welcome to everybody. So let's just see the presentation itself and a number of resources that will be referenced today will be in a shared folder for you. So don't worry about taking anything down that is part of the slide presentation, because we'll share that with you. And as I say, there's quite a lot of resources that we'll share and give you that folder link as well so that you can access it. I've popped the Call Scotland website link on the first slide, where you can view a lot of information about our service, as well as resources to download and professional learning, etc. There's also links to other mini sites. I'll reference one or two of them today, but that's the website if you would like to go and have a look at it in due course. But also on the slide are our social media links, and we'd be delighted if you could connect with us. We're pretty active on social media. On Twitter, there's a Call general account, as well as Claire and I both have our own accounts on Twitter too, and also our Facebook page. And we do post quite a lot of information of things that are happening, or sharing of information resources on social media. So it may be a useful source of information for you. So yeah, I do hope you find the session useful today, informative for those who maybe are particularly new to the area of using digital technologies for communication, and for those maybe that are more familiar with it, hopefully it will be an opportunity to reflect on your use and perhaps think about ways that you could use AEC in different ways across the school and within the curriculum, perhaps trying out some different AEC equipment with different learners. So we are, as I mentioned, the Call website, that's just one of the screenshots of the website there. we're based in Edinburgh at the university, but however, I've been working a lot at home recently, where we're today. But I say, have a look at the website if you'd like a bit more information about COL and what we do, and the resources that are free there for you to download. But kicking off really, or before we really get into the technologies themselves, what I did want to do was just to check that everybody was relatively familiar with the terminology, not wanting to assume any knowledge. But in terms of AEC, which we'll probably be using quite a bit today, that's one of the simple definitions that we do like, taken from the organisation Communication Matters. Also another useful website to link into. But what it does, AEC covers really, it's a vast range of techniques that support or replace spoken communication where that is difficult, limited, or where an individual is non-verbal. It does include gesture and signing, so maybe that there's no technology itself involved, sort of no tech as we refer to that type of AEC, and of course Makaton is one of the examples of that type of AEC that certainly is used in school, which you'll be familiar with. But also involves symbols, so technology involving symbols in various formats, whether word boards, communication boards, or books. And there's such a huge way that symbols can be used to support communication, not just expression, but also understanding, as well as voice output communication aids. And what we're doing today is we're focusing on that, this voice output, or the digital technologies. If you're interested in seeing a video of various people using AEC to communicate, and that's a range of individuals from young children up to older adults, then the video that I've linked to on the slide called Ways to Communicate might be a useful video for you to look at after the session today, because it shows people actually using the technology and communicating with others, so maybe something that you'd find useful to have a look at. So moving on to the next slide is really just to show you some visuals, to show you some photos of just what I've described, so the range of AEC, from the no tech with our trusted Mr. Tumble at the top and his Makaton, to the sort of printed resources, or the low tech, as sometimes it's referred to. And the photo on the slide is a pod book, and I know that some of the learners in school are using pod, so I see that's just one example of a printed symbol resource, or low tech. And then we move on to the high tech. So we've got our simple devices, which may be just the single message type devices, which involve a bit of electronics, batteries, or some of the others, obviously the rechargeable batteries in the likes of the iPad. So other examples within this sort of high-tech area of AEC is the sort of still simple type speech recorded devices, and this is an example here of a Go Talk, which we'll be going into a bit of detail with later on, as well as the iPad, which is used a lot now for supporting AEC, and we'll touch on one app that can be used on an iPad, still a very sort of simple basic level. What we're not sort of extending things today to is the more sort of dedicated complex communication devices, of which you have in school, but is not the focus of the session today. So we'll start with the kind of the basic single message devices, and there are quite a number of these in school. The Big Mac being the one I think that you have sort of most commonly in school. It does look a bit like a switch, but it is more than that, in that it is you can record messages onto it. Now the Big Mac, you can just record a single message onto it, but it provides sort of quick and easy sort of communication for learners at an early level. You have 2 minutes of recording time, and you could have recording a single word, such as again shown in the example on the slide here, or go perhaps if you're wanting to start or you're learning to start an activity. But equally so, you could record a phrase onto it, such as it's my turn, or I want to sing a song, and you can combine a few items on it too, maybe for activities such as giving instructions in a in a cooking session, such as how to make pancakes, for example. So you can add quite a lot together because it's a 2-minute recording time. You can have quite a lot of information for activated with a single press. So other features of it: volume control for sort of louder or softer replay of the message, and sort of on-off switch at the back. Claire will kind of show them sort of physically after we've sort of given you a bit more sort of a description. What you do get with the Big Mac are interchangeable tops. I think it often comes with the red top on it, and that's we tend to see the red tops, but you do get red, yellow, blue and green that come with the Big Mac, as well as a clear top. And what we really like is that the fact you can use the clear top to display a symbol, so that the learner can learn the meaning of the symbol, which is linked to the spoken message within it. So on the other side, you'll see the Little Mac, which has really exactly the same features as the Big Mac, but is slightly smaller. So for a learner that can manage a slightly smaller sort of target area, then the Little Mac is another option too. It's got a bit more of a wedge to it, so it's quite like the Little Mac in that the learner can see the symbol perhaps a wee bit more sort of clearly because it's angled up a bit more. But in terms of the features, they're exactly the same across the two, and I think in terms of the cost, it's exactly the same too. So let me just check if there's anything else on that. So yeah, that's the thing. They both run on a battery, a 9-volt battery. There's certainly historically been a bit of an issue with the cover at the back of the Big Macs, the battery cover, often being lost just because it doesn't clip in all that easily. But from what I can read, the recent Big Macs have got a better system, or certainly it's a bit more secure. So hopefully that will prevent that happening in the battery falling out. So just a couple of photos here of learners using these devices. It doesn't have to be an either or. You can see one learner there has got one of each, presumably with messages sort of that are useful within the same activity. They've got a choice of messages. So that gives you a wee bit of the perspective of the sort of sizes of them next to one another. So kind of going back to the tops again, as I mentioned, the clear tops are really helpful and useful for displaying the symbols on the devices. But something else that the alternative tops could be used for is for adding a texture to them. So for learners with a visual impairment who may struggle with the symbols but could learn to associate a texture with a spoken message, that's a nice fluffy one there, or you potentially could use something like a towel, maybe to signify a message about washing hands or showering, that type of thing. I'm aware of people using sandpaper on top of their Big Mac, maybe to denote that it's time for playing in the sandpit, bubble wrap, for example, for the sensory room, or something like sort of the kind of swimming costume type material for a message related to the swimming pool. I think the biggest challenge probably is just getting these textures attached to the actual top, because certainly these fluffy ones are pretty difficult with sort of double-sided tape and the like. So one other thing on this slide, just as an accessory for the Little Mac, not for the Big Mac, for the Little Mac, is that you can have a strap on it. So if a learner is ambulant and maybe taking messages around the school, for example, or out visiting somewhere in the community, then it's possible that you can have it on a strap and attached around your waist so that it's handy to use wherever you are. So one of the sort of resources that we've shared in the shared folder is a template for making your symbols for the Big Mac and the Little Mac, and this is for using within BoardMaker. The BoardMaker surprisingly doesn't actually come with these templates within it, but Claire some time ago designed these and uploaded them to the BoardMaker community, so they can be downloaded from there. But what I've done is I've popped these two resources in the shared folder. So if you're going to be looking at printing off symbols to put on the top of your Big Mac and your Little Mac, then both of these resources are there. Just a case of they may well just open up from the file, or otherwise just import them into your dashboard within BoardMaker. So thinking about the learners at this level, this early level of communication, and being aware of, giving some guidance on matching the skills of learners to this simple technology. Obviously, I'm aware of the APEC framework for assessment and intervention that is in use in school, and Hester was helping me the end of last week with just some information about that. I was aware of it, but it's not something that I've really used. So it's been an interesting learning curve for me. But I'm hoping that what I'm sharing with you here does give you help you to kind of match the technology to the learners, because I think the majority of your learners, if not all, have an APEC band from 1 to 4. And I'm happy to be corrected if some of this doesn't quite link in, but my kind of understanding is that the learners at this sort of band 1, 2 are emergent communicators, or they're at this early intentional level of communication. So would be the Big Mac sort of type single message devices, it would be appropriate to use with them. So learners that are really primarily communicating with facial expression, maybe gestures, vocalizing, or other sort of non-symbolic modes of communication, which might not be quite immediately apparent to others. But perhaps using sort of the Big Mac is certainly helping to make their communication a bit more accessible for others, and helping to learn and reinforce symbol meanings, as well as developing different reasons to communicate. And I've just picked out not necessarily all the reasons for communicating that are applicable at this band 1 and 2, but just some of the things that I thought ideally sort of match with the use of Big Macs in terms of sort of drawing attention and making requests, or sort of rejecting sort of things that a learner does not want to do, as well as greetings and asking for things to happen again or again, as well as giving some sort of directions so far as maybe directing activity to stop and go. In terms of the actual skills that the technology can be used to kind of help develop on the other side, certainly the learners at this stage may, certainly at the earlier stage, may not have an understanding of cause and effect. So using the technology can help with that. It can help in that when they can see when they're using the device that it's having an effect on others. If it's maybe they're making a choice, or they're calling somebody to get attention, they can see that when they're using the technology, it's having an effect on others, it's communicating to others. So other benefits or other ways, other skills that learners are learning here, so social skills of participation and turn taking, but as I mentioned, understanding can be supported through the symbols on the device, as well as learning sort of different ways to communicate. And very much the sort of first messages that I see listed in, I think that's band 2. Virtually all of these you could be using a Big Mac to help teach and for the learner to learn. So that certainly is one way to use the Big Mac. Just to give you a few sort of more examples of that then, so as well as the first messages, this is a poster which is a Call Scotland poster that can be downloaded from our website. I've split it up. It's normally in a kind of A4 format, but I've split it up just so that it's a wee bit easier to see on the slide. It's not particularly based on sort of curricular areas. It's around sort of the different suggestions for ways that a Big Mac could be used around the alphabet. It's just a way of presenting it. But there's quite a lot of ideas for using the Big Mac, things that you can have recorded in, and just a few sort of suggestions at the bottom in terms of giving information, directing others, it's time to go for lunch, singing the chorus of a song, if you can bear to listen to Amarillo again, was a favourite of mine at the time. Joining in with storytelling, such as turn the page, calling for help, finishing up an activity, saying that you're finished, ordering at a cafe, or asking questions, otherwise. So a few ideas there, and that, let's say, we put that poster in your folder too. So we'll come on sort of a wee bit later to linking sort of suggestions to the curriculum, but this might be a useful resource for you to have as well. So the next step up from the Big Mac, I would say, are these sequential message devices. And I did see, I've got photographic evidence that there is one of these in school. We had initially thought that it was just the basic Big Macs that you had in school, but certainly I've got a photograph of a big step-by-step. And the benefit of these, so there's a little step-by-step as well, is that you can record in a series of messages. So they're recorded in sort of separately, but when you come to replay them, you'll get them one after the next. So that can encourage a learner to sort of move beyond that single communication message, to sort of help by providing multiple messages. You help with to sort of aid by extending the sort of the interaction. It also can be helpful for encouraging a learner to use sort of different types of messages within that sort of sequence. So perfect for things like telling a story, so the steps in a story. Also for things like counting, or for telling a joke, having the different steps of a joke. And I say, sort of use can be used in lots of different ways. And another feature of these devices that's really helpful is that you also, as well as you can have 3 different sets of messages at the same time. So whereas a Big Mac, you have to re-record each time you come to use it with a different message. The Little Mac and the Little Step and the Big Step-by-Step, you can have 3 different sets of messages. So it would mean that you could use it throughout the course of the day for 3 kind of particular communication encounters without having to re-record. So that makes them quite sort of flexible. So a total of 4 minutes recording time. So you've got quite a lot of recording time, and yeah, good for maybe sort of sharing news as well. So the company behind these devices, although they're supplied by a UK company, it's actually an American company that's behind all these devices that you've seen so far, called AbleNet. And there's some nice support materials on the AbleNet's website, as well as some easy kind of getting started videos. So there's a link there on the slide to the AbleNet website for you to check that out if you think that might be useful. So something else that these sort of basic devices can do that's kind of often under sort of utilised by lots of people is connecting them up to switch operated, and mains. You can connect it up to mains operated devices as well. So the message in the device can be linked to the activity. So the child can comment as well as operate the actual toy. And that can really help to provide sort of motivation and the learner to be engaged and use the technology, and then perhaps move on to using the device separately just for communication. And just to mention that we do have some of these available at call, the switch operated devices, and also the mains controller, which means you can plug in a mains device such as a fan or a disco light or something like that, things in a sensory room that if you had wanted to borrow them to use with your Big Macs, then it's something we could arrange to send them up to you. So something else that is again sometimes not utilised quite as much as it could be is plugging in external switches to devices, because not all learners might be able to just directly touch the Little Mac or the Big Mac to operate it. They might need a switch, which is just the control. So this is a green simple switch here, plugged into the back of this Little Mac, and so this switch will operate it in just exactly the same way as if you were touching the Little Mac itself. But switches, there are lots of varieties of switches depending on the sort of physical skills of a learner. So if they might have sort of head control, you could have a head switch, or a foot switch if they have better foot control than other sort of physical movements. So there's, again, we've got lots of different switches that can be borrowed as well for learners. The other thing that might be needed is a way of mounting the switch, and switches are easier to mount really than the actual devices themselves. I mean, they can be mounted, but generally there's a bit more sort of more options with mounting switches, and this one's just on that sort of flexi arm that's attached to this wee boy's wheelchair, because he needs it kind of at the side, maybe with having a sort of sweeping movement with his hand to operate it. But I see there's lots of other options for sort of switches, different types of switches. So I'm just going to pass over to Claire then to share her camera and just give you a wee bit of a heads up on recording onto a Big Mac. You okay, Claire?
Yeah, if you stop sharing your screen, I shall share mine. Thanks, Elaine.
Yeah.
That's great. Right, there we go. Can you see my screen okay?
Perfect.
Yeah, lovely. So I'll just pop my camera on there. Right, so we've got here, this is your actual little step-by-step multi-message device. Just quickly to mention, anecdotally speaking, if you've got the wee ones, I find that the switch caps, these clear ones, tend to stay on better on the wee ones than they do compared to the big ones. Having your labels not laminated definitely helps with that, because if they're laminated, they're a bit thicker, so they tend to pop off. So I do find they just fit on slightly better. And top pandemic reuse, recycle tip for keeping labels, because I reckon part of the reason why you end up not using labels when you're putting different messages on these is because you can't get hold of them. So you need to have them somewhere handy in your classroom. So this is just a lateral flow extraction tube holder that I've cut a square out of, and I've basically got it velcroed on my room here, so I can just really quickly go through and find the label that I've got. So there, you can use these if you do get those kinds of those COVID test kits. Okay, so anyway, moving on. This is your step-by-step. It's really simple to record lots of messages onto the step-by-step. And what's quite handy about them as well is that you get the instructions on the back. So if you can't remember, don't worry, it will take you kind of step-by-step through what you need to do. This little light here is your battery on, well, it's your kind of on-off light, but it's also going to tell you when the battery is starting to wear down. So if you spot that that light is orange, it means that you need to replace the battery. And you'll probably have started to work out that the battery is going because the sound starts to distort. It gets a bit kind of crunchy sounding. So that's just kind of something to be aware of. So to record a message, you turn it on. This is your volume button here. That's my light kind of flicked on to tell me that it was turned on. You press the record button here until the light stays on. And then whenever I press the top, it's going to record whatever I say. So I'm going to record a set of 3 instructions. So I'm going to press and release this top 3 times. First, get a spoon from the big drawer. So that's the first instruction. Then get a bowl from the cupboard and get the milk from the fridge. So that's my 3 instructions. When I finished recording, I press to tell it I finished recording. And now when I press, first get a spoon from the big drawer. So hopefully you can hear that. Then get a bowl from the cupboard and get the milk from the fridge. And so if I wanted to operate that using a jelly bean, I might have a learner who can use a head switch. So I would just plug in there where it says switch. And now I'd be able to operate it from the switch. First, get a spoon from the big drawer. And Gillian also mentioned when she was just chatting about the different features that you've got levels with these sort of more up-to-date Big Macs and step-by-steps. So that basically means you can record 3 sets of messages. So I could have something else entirely different on level 3, something else entirely different on level 2. So that might just save me a bit of time kind of recording off the hoof, as it were, as we were going through the school day. Okay, so that's, I think, everything. Gillian, is there anything else you want me to mention while we've got the camera up? Your volume has gone, Gillian. Are you on mute by any chance?
Sorry, I just had muted briefly. No, that's perfect, Claire. That's covered it nicely. Thanks very much. So, yeah, I'm really glad that the instructions are on the back of most of these devices that we're talking about today. And yeah, thankfully the recording process is more or less the same with them all, so that's kind of helpful. If you've seen how to do it on one device, it's mostly sort of transferable to the other devices. So yeah, good to have a reminder of that. So the next slide is about sort of further ideas for using these devices. So we have another resource from Call Scotland, and it's on the slide now, or on your screen now, and this is called 20 Ways to Be Excellent. So it's suggestions that are very much linked to curricular areas. Excuse me. It gives you some guidance on what to have. If we just pick up on the expressive arts area first. So it'll give you some guidance on to what you can use on a single message device. And there's a colour coding system. You'll see I've chopped it off the bottom here just for so I can make it slightly bigger for you. But when you download it, on the bottom there's sort of a colour coding sort of systems. So the top box always refers to a single message device. So in expressive arts, if you're involved in a drama, if the children are involved in assembly or some kind of drama, then a single message from the drama could be recorded onto the device, for example. For the multi-message devices with the that are stepped, you could have the different lines of a song or different lines that are appropriate to a song recorded in. And this one here at the bottom, I think, is for sort of devices that you can set into a random mode, so that you can have a selection of messages and they just play in a kind of random order, which can be kind of quite fun and used in a number of different ways, including bingo, which we'll come back to later. So the poster is accompanied by a leaflet, and that's on the other side of the slide. So each of these areas, there's guidance, on what to record in and how to use it within these activities, and linking to the curriculum for excellence E's and O's as well. So that might be something that would be useful for you thinking about using these devices across different learning activities within the curriculum. So let's just move on then to thinking about what are the advantages really of using devices over symbol communication. We know there are a few disadvantages. We know that they can break down and the batteries can fall out and they're not charged. But what I've popped on here are a list of some of the advantages really of using voice output, not necessarily instead of, but as well as printed communication resources. And the the fact that you have obviously the auditory output does help to sort of draw the attention of the learner because of the auditory output, but also of others. So it's a good kind of attention sort of grabber, or for maintaining attention control through the auditory output. It gives more control, I would say, to the learner, because they're not quite so relying on communication partners sort of interpreting their communication through interpreting the symbols that they're using. So it does promote sort of a bit more sort of independent use of communication. Also, as Claire mentions, options for alternative access through using switches. And although there also is alternative access for use of symbols, you've got, I'd say, switch access is good for learners with more physical disabilities to be using the digital sort of devices. Can help to support with the symbol meanings because of the voice output, and yeah, sort of greater engagement really, I would say. Although with some learners, recognisably that it can be a bit of a distraction, whether kind of multiple hits of devices or just getting into some of the hardware around them. But what it certainly can help with is communication with peers. So other peers that perhaps can't necessarily access the printed symbol resources that a learner might be using, but could be hearing the voice output and understanding that. Good for a sort of group situation or communicating across the room, so it doesn't require sort of the face-to-face sort of context as much. Could be used for communicating on the phone, or I suppose what we've been doing much more recently, communicating online or remotely. And although you can use symbols on these virtual online sessions, certainly having voice output for saying hello to Gran, or giving some news perhaps, so kind of remotely, is much more kind of usable and engaging. And also something maybe more related to home use is using them to control devices, such as through your Google Home or your Alexa, in that you can record messages into it, such as, hey Google, turn on such and such a song, or show me such a Mr. Tumble video, as well as I think some of the television controllers now have got voice control too. So quite a number of advantages over printed resources. So the next slide, just I wanted to touch on this idea of using scripts, and that's to help with sort of moving learners on from single message devices to these sort of stepped devices where you have a few messages in a step, just sort of in the same way that Claire was recording in a few messages. Then it's possible to record in these scripts. And I say it really helps with learners to move beyond just using a single message and that being the end of the interaction, because you're providing some sort of further language to extend it, and also to use different types of messages. So you're kind of scaffolding the conversation for the learner with the aim of helping them to interact or extend that interaction. They're quite sort of powerful and kind of really socially or kind of quite engaging. A lot of the work around social scripts is by two American speech and language therapists. One of them, Linda Burkhart, and I've popped a link on the slide there for you to follow up if you'd like to learn a wee bit more about scripts. But I say they kind of help with the flow of the interaction, help learners to start, and you can see the idea that there's a structure here, and this is just a kind of 4-point structure. So you'd start off with an attention getter sort of type message, to sort of gain the attention of those around, and then you would see your kind of what your main communication message is, or what you might want to do. And then it might be you would be wanting to repeat that, so kind of maintaining this interaction. So if you'd ask for a song, can we sing another one, or let's choose a different song, for example. And then there's usually a closing message to sort of indicate that the interaction is finished. So great for telling stories. You can use them in lots of different ways, such as joke telling, ordering food. They can probably think up quite a few kind of humorous ways to use them. And the thing about them is that they need to be used kind of repeatedly, or sort of the learner being given lots of practice over a number of weeks, and the learner, they generally will begin to recognise and sort of anticipate when staff sort of engage and speak particular words, that it's their time to chip in with their message, and so there's that sort of expectation that they will respond with one of their communication messages on their device. So what I've popped a handout in the resources, which is from Linda Burkhart, and in fact, if I just open it up now, where is it? There it is. Just to show you, so it gives you a form where you can fill in what you want to, what message you might want to have in your script, which is, you can make up your own form or use this one, and also some guidance on using, how to use them, and a sort of example at the bottom. So that's in your folder too, if you might feel you want to sort of explore that a wee bit further. So just before we kind of leave this sort of simple communication devices, another couple that I wanted to mention, and I know that you've got some of these iTalk 2 devices in school, useful for having obviously two messages available to the learner. They do have three levels, so you could have 3 sets of messages too, and quite a useful device for things like opposites. This example here, stop and go, where the learners may be directing the activity of others, or starting a race, or starting musical statues or whatever, by using a stop and go response. Another device that is quite a useful all-rounder is the Smooth Talker. And it's got good volume, 2 speakers on either side of it. In terms of sort of physical attributes, it's got a bit of a dome to it. so it doesn't lend itself so well to have a symbol on it, but there's other ways that you can display symbols, and I'll show you that on the next slide. But just before we move on, what you've got are multiple sort of play modes with the Smooth Talker. So I suppose you kind of get more for your money, so to speak. So as well as using it just as a single message device like the Big Mac, and also like having a sequential or a sequence of messages like the step by step, you can also have random messages recorded in, as I mentioned before, which are quite useful for using it as a dice, for example. So you could have the numbers 1 to 6 recorded in, and then put into random mode, and when the child presses it, one of these will be spoken. So for a child that cannot throw a dice, it gives them the ability to participate in the activity. The other way that it works really, or is really useful for, is for a bingo game where the learner is calling out the items in a bingo game, and I've got that on one of the slides just coming up shortly. So there's a number of other sort of different options with the Smooth Talker that you can use. It's got similarly, you can plug a switch in, you can control a toy. It's got these sort of similar features to the other ones. And the company behind them, although they're is Praetorian, I think they're a UK-based company actually. And there's a link to some information, further information about the Smooth Talker. I don't think you have one in school, but we do have Smooth Talkers in call if you think you might like to borrow one. So just one couple of ideas of how to display symbols. There is a suggestion that you would lift up this flap and display your symbol kind of resting on it as it's kind of raised up, but it does expose the controls, because that's how, rather than the controls being on the back, how you change the levels is under this flap, and I just feel it's rather too inviting to have all these exposed for fingers to get in and change it to a different mode. So I would suggest one way around that is just to put some Velcro on the flap and stick your symbol to it. It doesn't have to be round, just a couple of symbols that I had handy when I was taking a picture yesterday. Alternatively, is just to stick the symbol next to it. This is a Access tray that is sitting on, which is a felt kind of covering to it. It works really well with Velcro. You can have Velcro on the back of your devices as well as Velcro on the back of your symbols, so they stay in one place, hopefully. So here's the bingo example, and this is available on our Symbols for All website, so one of our mini websites. And it's so what I've done is just a wee bit of copying and paste. These are PDF, our PDF file. They're pages of a PDF that you can download. The Symbol for All resources are all linked to the curriculum. So this is it's a numeracy and mathematics learning activity looking at 2D shape. So what the page or the slide shows is that this central set of items you would record in. So you would record all of these 11 items into your Smooth Talker. Then hand out the boards. So each of these boards is slightly different. So obviously each of them is missing 2, as you'd find in normal sort of your bingo cards. And then you would set it to random mode with no repeats. So there's an option so that it will only speak each of these items once, so that the one of the pupils can be the bingo caller and call out the items for each of the other learners to sort of check their boards. So I say that's one of the features that or one of the ways of using a Smooth Talker. Obviously you can make bingo boards for lots and lots of different things, but that's just one example from the Symbols for All website. If you're keen to have kind of an overall view of the different single and multi-message devices and just have a kind of quick comparison, This guide, which is another one from our website you can download, is available, and Claire recently updated it with the sort of a range of these different devices and price, the type of device, recording time, so I see different features. But just wanted to mention that it was there. If you're interested in having a look. I know that in school you have got the Big Mac and the Big Step-by-Step. So from this list, and actually I've got down here that you have got the Smooth Talker Alone. You might have it already. If not, it's available for you to borrow if you'd like to. So kind of leaving behind these single message devices then, and moving on to thinking about those pupils that are at a slightly more advanced level with their communication and using multi-message devices. These devices are, I would say, appropriate for your learners at Band 3 of the APEC framework, and they are, I would describe them as maybe context sort of communicators. So those that they're starting to develop more reliable communication, maybe starting to use symbols and other modes of communication, but their communication might be a bit more limited to certain partners, topics, and sort of the kind of here and now context. But they will have, or certainly the sort of reasons for communicating this will be more varied than the learners at the earlier level, and they may be beginning to sort of express sort of wants and likes and sort of make choices a bit more reliably. So a greater range of reasons for communicating. Also sort of giving news or giving directions and starting to sort of describe and question. So in terms of social communication skills, they would be, or you'd be looking at helping them to learn a further sort of turn taking, talking about things that are happening in context, but also sort of learning to respond to topics that others are communicating about, and that strategic sort of level of communication competence where they're beginning to sort of repair or be able to cope with whether the communications maybe not been effective or kind of misunderstood. So I would say that if your learners are operating at this kind of band, then these multi-message devices, you might think about sort of starting to introduce them and helping learners to use them. And we're going to just talk about two of these types of multi-message tools. The one that we like, that's the kind of most basic multi-message device, we like the GoTalk a lot, and we do have a lot of resources that are based on the GoTalk that can be accessed from our Symbols for All website. And we're also going to touch on the Sounding Board app for iPad, which is a kind of entry-level basic communication app. Now, the GoTalk is still recorded speech within it. You can record in single messages, you can record in phrases to it, but it's a dedicated communication device, and the company behind that is called Attainment. Again, it's an American company, and there's a link to a bit further information about the GoTalks, although they're supplied by a couple of the UK suppliers. iPads, I suppose, gives you a greater flexibility because it could be used with a range of apps to support communication. It's great for taking and using photographs within the communication apps, but I suppose the disadvantage is it can be quite distracting for some learners, in that obviously the iPads can be used for quite a number of different things, not just communication. The Sounding Board app, I say, is basic. It has got recorded speech in it. You can have up to 20 buttons. You don't have to have 20. You can have just one button on it. You could be using it as almost like a single message device. But you can, yeah, and then you can build, more messages on your board, up to 20. The other advantage of sounding board is that you can use a switch with it. So for learners that would find the touch control difficult on an iPad, you can plug a switch in for scanning so that they can still access the messages. And the big advantage too is that it's free, and we believe it is available to you to download onto the iPads in school. So just going back then to the GoTalks, there are 3 varieties with different sizes of cells or buttons, and different number of messages, ranging from the GoTalk 4, which actually has 6 messages, because there's 2 at the top here as well. The GoTalk 9, which has 12 messages, because there's 3 at the top too, and the GoTalk 20, which is 25. The reason that these are sort of being singled out, these messages at the top, is that they're designed to stay as kind of core or key messages that remain across the different levels in the GoTalk, because you can have multiple or up to 5 different sets of messages by changing the printed overlay, which sort of slides out at the side. You can have a different set of messages for a different activity. However, it's designed that these 3 messages don't change, so you potentially have 3 kind of core messages that stay the same. Generally speaking, in our resources, we tend to just treat them as the other messages on the overlay here, which does mean they need to be re-recorded each time you change level, but at least it's only the 3. So they're very lightweight, the GoTalks, nice handle at the top for carrying them, and they're quite slim and quite portable, easy to fit in a backpack for using in different environments, and it's 2 AA batteries that they do generally last quite a long time, and there's no sort of recharging involved. The square buttons give quite a nice deep key guard, or for learners that maybe physically are maybe their fine motor control is slightly compromised. They may benefit from having this sort of physical kind of key guard to help them kind of target an actual button. I say the overlays there are templates within BoardMaker that you can use to create the printed overlays. So I'm going to there is the most recent GoTalk that's become available is called the light touch option, because some people or some learners are finding it a wee bit tricky to activate the buttons on the GoTalk, especially if you're laminating them to protect them, which makes them just a bit thicker. Whereas the light touch option doesn't require quite so much pressure to activate the button, although they are quite a bit more expensive, but it may be that's enough to make quite a difference for learners. So I'm going to pass over to Claire just to go over the recording, which is pretty straightforward and easy for the GoTalk. Then thankfully the instructions are on the back, and this is a photo of my GoTalk. And as you can see, I quite like having a wee bit of an aide-memoire at the top, just a wee sticky label to help me remember what the different levels are, because you have got levels 1 to 5 with Claire will show with a light corresponding to each to show which level you're on. So that's what I tend to do, is put a wee sticky label on the back to help me with that. So over to you, Claire. I'll just stop sharing my screen now.
So this is the light touch GoTalk that Gillian was talking about just a second ago. It's slightly lighter green than the other ones. That's how you can tell the difference. I'm all about the label storage with these things, and the thing I like about GoTalk is that you can store overlays in the side pocket there. So if you've got other ones that you want to use, you can store them in there. Really simple to use. As Gillian said, you get the instructions on the back. You turn them on with the on-off switch up there, and it automatically turns on in play mode. So this is it in play mode.
And then,
hopefully you can hear.
Look. What's that?
So this is just a general shared reading story overlay that's on here that I might be using if I was going to sit down with a learner and look at a book together, and we could comment.
Funny. What's that?
On the different story words. So these buttons here, I'll just pull it down so you can see, these indicate that there are 5 different levels of messages that you can have. So with the Big Macs and the step-by-step levels, you could have up to 3 sets. With a Go Talk, you can have up to 5 sets, and you can toggle between the levels just by pressing the button, and it will tell you, it will use whatever vocabulary you've got recorded. So say, for example, I wanted to record a new set of vocabulary. So I'm going to put in a core word board for a pirate with some pirate fringe activity in it to record. It's really simple. You turn it on, you press this button here, which puts it in record mode. And you know it's in record mode because this red light appears on here. And then to record, you tap whichever button you want to record. So I would tap here. I'm just going to pull it down so you can hopefully see the light flashing on and off. So when it's in recording mode, this red light will start flashing. Want. Not. More. So I'll just give you an example of those. I take it out of recording mode, and now
I want. Not.
So really, really simple to use. You've got your speaker, you've got your handle. You can put the volume up, or you can turn the volume down if you want to. So that's a little bit louder there. They're pretty robust as well, so they can cope quite well if they get dropped or they end up on the floor for any reason. So they cope quite well with that, shall we say. Okay, thanks, Gillian.
Thanks very much. Yes, of the 3, the Go Talk 9 is the one that we certainly like using the most, and we have produced quite a number of resources on our Symbols for All website. I'll just go into that. In curricular resources, you'll find here about 100 boards. They're at PDF format that can be downloaded. And if I just do a research on Go Talk, you'll see we've got 3 here. The shared reading board that Claire was talking about is on, and that could be used with any book to encourage a learner to join in with shared reading. So that's available just to download, and there's also a Play-Doh chat board there as well, and a Jigsaw board for Go Talk 9. So as well as that, there are lots of other, about 100 other resources that you can download, and you can download BoardMaker PCS files too, of all of them if you want to have them to sort of edit them for your own sort of learners. So what I want to do is just now to, let me go back here, give you some ideas about kind of bringing all that together then, all the devices that we've shown you so far. How could we set them up for different learners with different needs to use within, say, one particular learning activity? And the Music Man board, so this is just a printed symbol board, is one of the boards that you can download from the Symbols for All website. And I just thought this was a nice example of an expressive arts music activity for making choices, because it's the Music Man song. And when it gets to the point in the song where everybody's singing, "What can you play?" everybody stops and then waits for a response from whoever is having their turn. So if it is a learner who is using a symbol board, then they could just have the printed board in front of them to use. Just another suggestion for what you might do with the board, and this one is just an example of the symbols chopped up. with a bit of Velcro attached onto a access tray. Quite nice for handing round the group, and maybe for a child to be lifting off which one they want to choose. And then that eliminates, what's left. Well, you can then see, what other instruments you might be wanting to sing about. So it kind of also sort of ties in with kind of PEC's approach, where you might be handing over a symbol. So just sort of an example of sort of the printed resources. But what we're also thinking about are using these digital resources too. So the Little Mac could have the line, "What can you play?" on it for learners to use it at the appropriate point in the song. I was thinking about the two message devices and what you might have. And you could just have two instruments on it, for a learner. Maybe they're two favourite instruments that they could use. But I thought, well, you could actually have a direction like play it loudly, for example. So you could wait for the learner to share, how they would like everybody to sing and to play their instruments. Play, I mean, by playing, I mean, gesturing their instrument and singing loudly. Alternatively, directing others to sing it or play it quietly. So I thought that was quite a nice way of introducing a couple of descriptive words to this activity. So the Go Talk board has got the same musical instruments on it and a couple more, because you've got 9 on there. And then you've got the sort of repeated messages like, "What can you play?" and "Play it loudly, play it softly" at the top. And here's an example of sounding board and how you might set up sounding board for the same activity. This particular board's got 16 symbols on it. This is symbol sticks. It's just what another symbol set that we sometimes use with our resources and with the learners we work with. And it's I say got recorded messages in it as well. So I'm going to sort of pass you over, I think, very shortly to Claire, just to show you about sounding board and to show you how you might set that up for a learner. But I say that gives you a kind of a sense of how you could have a group activity with different learners all sort of joining in with technology that's sort of matched to their needs. So Claire, I'll just pass over to you now to just give us a quick look at sounding board, if that's okay.
Sure, yeah, that's fine. I shall share my screen. Can you see my iPad okay there, Gillian?
Yep.
Of course, what did I forget to do? So I'm just going to do it again. I forgot to check the annoyingly tiny include computer sound box. So let me just do that again. Right. Can you see that okay?
All good.
Yeah, right. So this is the app here, sounding board. So I'm just going to open it up. It comes with its own sort of quite small set of symbols and some ready-made boards, but you probably want to use your own photographs and use your own symbols in the boards. And it's pretty simple to do that. You can do a Google image search, or you can open up a PDF of a symbol resource on your iPad and use the screenshot feature to basically turn it into a photograph. So I've got a PDF here of a communication board that's on Symbols for All. It's a kind of a something is wrong one. And I'm just going to pinch and drag just to make it slightly bigger. So I'm going to get the one that says thirsty just in the middle there. And I'm going to press the home button and the on-off button at the same time to make a screenshot. You'll see it's popped there at the bottom left-hand side. If I tap that, I can then drag down the handles to make it the sort of size and shape that's going to turn it into one symbol. When I'm done, I can tap done, and I'm going to save that to my photographs. So that's in my camera roll. So now when I go back to sounding board, I'm going to make a new board. I'm just going to tap up at the top right hand side. So all you need is your board name. So we'll call it Feelings. You can give it a photograph for whatever you want. What I'll do is I'll tap and show you the symbol library that comes with the app. So let's see, I'm not sure actually if there is a feelings symbol. So this is where we see its limitations. So I'll search for emotions. There are only 2 emotions, according to Sounding Board, but I can pinch and move this around a bit if I want to, and I'm going to tap Save. So that little icon there is the one that will appear on the left-hand side in the menu. I'm going to move on and show you how simple it is to add a cell. So all I do is tap to add an image. I'm going to go and search from my photo library for this image, and there's my thirsty symbol. I'm going to select use. I could pinch and drag to make it bigger or smaller if I wanted to. I might want to, for example, get rid completely of that thirsty on there and just use the text label. But I'll use that. I'm going to give it a name, thirsty. I'm going to tap Save. And now I'm going to tap here to record my message, and it's going to start recording me straight away. I'm feeling thirsty. So I can listen to it. I'm feeling thirsty. Okay, and that is all you need to do. If I've finished, it will save it automatically if I tap on this arrow here, and I can go to the next board. So there's my one cell that I've added, and if I tap it, I'm feeling thirsty. So there you can see there's our little icon that we added at the start. And if we wanted to go in and add more, all I would do is tap Edit Boards, tap on the board, and just tap through to get to this page, and then I can go in and do the same process again to add another. But don't panic in terms of that went too quickly for me to work out what to do. We've got a quick guide to getting started with Bitsboard that's in the resource, not Bitsboard, Sounding Board that's in the resource file as well. So you can have a wee look at it there. Okay. Back to you, Gillian. Thanks.
Yep, great. Thanks, Claire. I don't think I mentioned that this particular app is free, and if it had symbols in it, you can pretty much expect that it wouldn't be free, and so that's why Claire was showing you how to import. If you're using BoardMaker or other symbols, it's showing you how you could still access them and make up your boards, like this. Another way way of setting up your boards is to use photographs, which obviously you can access really easily from your iPad and make up a photo board. So we normally would say you kind of get what you pay for so far as apps and communication apps, and generally you're paying for the symbols, you're paying for the design of it, you're paying for the support, but surprisingly Sounding Board has been around for quite a time, and I say we've kind of utilised it for sharing a lot of our resources, and it's actually the company behind it is AbleNet, so it's the same company that are behind these single message devices, and they certainly seem to be sticking with it and sticking with supporting it. So yeah, it's certainly worth exploring for at this kind of early level, or supporting this early level communication. So we're going to just, I think, touch on one or two things, because I do want to give you some opportunity for some sort of questions, just to share some other ideas for activities and setting up the devices. So this is a literacy and English sort of listening and talking activity based on describing words, which are really good for learners using AAC to learn to use, because often they don't have vast vocabulary available to them, but if they've got some of these kind of core describing words, it can be really helpful for describing things and still conveying quite a lot of meaning. So it's food tasting. I've popped the Go Talk Now board in the resources folder for you. As you can see, we've now got more, so rather than just the sort of items or nouns from the Music Man activity, we've got sort of vocabulary that allows you to build a message and to use 2, 3 sort of words within a message to build a sentence. So single message device with my turn, perhaps. Your two message device with I like or I don't like. And yeah, just an example of the sounding board with just four messages on it there. So another example is a baking activity, and this is a board from Symbols for All. It's a core word baking chat board set up with, as you can see, it's of colour-coded green core words with some of the fringe vocabulary, the topic-specific vocabulary for baking, and more might be something you'd have on a single message device. Stop and go for directing others to maybe to stop stirring, or to go so far as start stirring, or pouring, or adding. So quite a few sort of actions involved in baking that a learner could be involved in, sort of starting and stopping, and that can be quite a bit of fun. So the Go Talk board there, and a sort of similar sort of mirrored sounding board, and just here another example of symbol using printed symbol resources, and it might be quite tricky to see the symbols on this Perspex frame called an eTran frame, but I've chopped up some of these core words and put them on this frame, and this is for learners who physically are not able to point to symbols but can eye point, and it's a really nice portable way of involving learners in making choices and communicating within the activity just by eye pointing. The idea of using an eTran frame is that communication partner will be opposite, so it's clear so that you can see where the eyes are sort of resting, the learner's eyes are resting. You can see, because you have the frame in between the learner and the communication partner, you can see what they're looking at. And you would either have the symbols duplicated on the other side, or sometimes a wee bit of a shortcut, I just write the symbol label, so I know what it is that the learner's looking at. So a way of selecting symbols just through using their eyes for eye pointing. And before I think we open it up for questions, I wanted to share with you some of the resources that we've produced for sort of shared reading, or supporting shared reading and participation in storytelling. And this is on our Symbols for All website. I'm just going to jump to the book bug section on this page here, and the primary one, Family Bag, is the current resources that we have available for this. So this is the Scottish Book Trust competition that runs each year, where books are sent to every primary one child. They're picture books, so they're type of books you could use with a range of learners in school. What we've produced are symbolised resources that will help with participation in the storytelling based on these single message devices and the Go Talk and the sounding board app. So there is a, without sort of describing it much sort of further, there is a really nice video, and there's a link to the video which gives you a bit of a description of the resources, a kind of overview of the resources and how you might use them. Then further, one of our other sessions that we've got coming up, we'll also be talking about the books, or the digital books that we've produced in PowerPoint that can be used for learners, which are all based on these same books. So you could have the digital book up on your smartboard or on a computer, which is a narrated copy of the book, and learners could be accessing that with switches to move it on, so that they could be sort of participating in operating the technology, as well as having access to the communication resources to support communication. So I think I will stop there. We have got a bit further or a bit more that we were going to share, but I think I'm going to open up just to any questions, because I don't want to stop there without giving you some opportunity to ask any questions, or to any comments of anything that you've seen today that you might like to follow up on, perhaps already using and finding useful, or maybe using in a different way. But if anybody would like to come on to just enable your microphone, or type your question into the chat, whichever you're most comfortable with, and Claire and I will jump in. Rachel.
Hi, yeah, I'm Rachel. I'm one of the speech and language therapists in school. I just wanted to say that was really useful and very, very interesting. There's some new resources there that I'd not heard of, so that's brilliant. I will find those very useful to use. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. That's so kind of you to say. I'm glad that there's some things that you'll find useful. Great, good. And sorry we missed you when we were up, but maybe the next time.
That'll be good.
Yeah, cool. Anybody else want to jump in there? I'll maybe just show you this resource if anybody's thinking. I was thinking about older learners maybe, and also learners that could perhaps use a few more messages, not just be limited to the 9. And an example of a board perhaps you could be using for a visit to a cafe, or maybe role playing a cafe within house or other parts of the school. And yeah, I was going to give you a wee challenge to see what single messages you might pick out from that to put on your single message devices, but I see we've maybe not got too much time for that. I'd thought of a couple there, but any more questions so far?
What I would say, Gillian and Claire, it's been really informative. Sorry, Luna's just going to turn off the board.
Yeah, you must.
Sorry, folks, just trying to get rid of the echo. Yeah, it's been very, very informative. So what I would suggest to people is that perhaps if there's anything springs to mind later, because quite often you could go away from this and then you suddenly think, oh, I should have asked that. Come back to us, because obviously we'll be having future sessions and we can follow up on your questions at that point. So yeah, please either shout out just now or come back to us later on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, it often is maybe on reflection that that people might think of something that they would like to find out a bit more about. So we're more than happy to help with that, either through yourself, Claire, or Lorraine, or email us directly. There's a general email on the call website, and general emails will get to us via that. I've got our contact emails on the end of the presentation, as well as the link to the resources. So yeah, more than happy to help with that.
I can do. Sorry. Okay, I just want, have I got my speaker on? I just wanted to say thank you to Gillian and Claire. And as you saw in the chat, we have borrowed some resources. Smithy's eyeing up the Go Talk 9 though, and Anne Neal's also looking for it. So there may be a little bit of a bun fight. Smithy's already got it. But yeah, it's been really interesting. And we'll share the link to the file and the recording for people who want to revisit some stuff, because there's a lot of information there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you very much, ladies.
Okay.
And look forward to the next input.
Yeah, cool. Could I also say we do have an evaluation form. It's quite simple, but if you we would welcome some feedback. So we'll pop it into the well, in fact, would we email that out to you? Maybe Lorraine, would that be better for sharing, perhaps?
Yeah, that's probably best. There's a questionnaire out just now asking people for sort of a baseline on where they're at. So I'll share that with you guys as well. And then we can follow up with your evaluation questionnaire as well.
Cool. Yeah. We do issue certificates as well, so we'll send that out in a digital badge that people can use if they would like to. So we'll share that with you too, and the recording probably will be in the next couple of days that it'll be available. So we might just send them all out at the one time just to streamline that a bit. But is there anything, Claire, that you can think that I've kind of forgotten to mention? I'm just.
I don't think so, Gillian. Do you want to show the last slide maybe, when then that's got our emails? If people do suddenly a question pops into someone's head, you can kind of get in touch with us. In between, because I think it's next month our next session. So
yes, that's right, the 22nd. Yeah, there's also just a slide on some basic principles so far as sort of a format to follow when setting up the technology. So that's in the presentation too. But if I just kind of get to the end, that's just one or two things that are coming up with our professional learning. But that's our contact emails and link to our resources on the last page too. Okay, so if that's us then, we shall finish up there, but thanks very much for everybody for joining us today. It's been really good sharing that with you. We'll look forward to hearing how some of that might be put into practice. And we'll be catching up with you in a month, 22nd of March. So wish you all a good evening.
Thanks everyone. See you next month.
Thanks very much then.
Thank you.
Bye for now.